Today, we continue our State of the Franchise series by looking up north to our friends over in Vancouver. Trevor Beggs from the Vancouver Canucks, Locked On Canucks joins, where we look at the state of the franchise for the Canucks, what's going on up there, if they can figure out what sort of direction that they want to be in. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at Inside the Rink and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly a part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you got to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And we are joined by Trevor Beggs of Locked On Canucks. How's it going, buddy?
JD, great to be here with you. You know, heard lots of great things, but first time doing the show. It's an honor to be here with you, man.
All those things you heard are lies. I don't know who you heard great things from. That is 1,000% a lie. And
JD's a modest guy. He was giving me parenting advice before the show started. He's just being a modest guy here.
You keep the bar low, and then that way, no matter what, you can't fail if you just keep the bar low. So before we get into the state of the Canucks franchise, which is definitely one of the more interesting franchises in the entire NHL, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment matter more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So Trevor, give me the official state of the Vancouver Canucks, who missed the playoffs last year. It feels like they have been one of the biggest storylines in all of the NHL from the past couple seasons. They made the playoffs, of course, in the bubble season. And then they've gone through GMs, coaches, everything. What is the state of the Canucks franchise as of 2023?
Oh, JD, that's such a loaded question. But honestly, I see similarities between the Canucks and Sharks in one way here, and that's growing up.
Play hockey.
Yeah, well, yeah. The Sharks almost are like the Canucks, but have a bit less drama, but they're also a bit worse. You know what I mean? There's similarities.
They are terrible. The Sharks are one of the worst things in the NHL. They're terrible, so it's fine. But no, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, going big picture here, like the Sharks and Canucks both in the 2000s, and for a long stretch, were both really good teams. And the state of the Canucks franchise, they've been bad for a decade. I think that's the state of the franchise in a nutshell, because, every season it's like, is this team going to be better? Are they going to make the jump? And it's, they've had one good season in almost a decade now, right? Making the playoffs only in 2019-20. So I think it's the state of the franchise is a lot of frustration, a lot of turmoil, a lot of drama. And the hope is that some of that drama is in the past now, that they have, a new GM in, a new coach in. So, I think there's tepid optimism, but there's a lot of pent-up frustration in this market for sure.
Yeah, I think, right, it's this, what are they? Are they a playoff team? Are they a contender? Are they a rebuild? Or are they just kind of one of these creamy middle teams right now? And I just feel like that's kind of what the Canucks are. They just don't have a direction, right? And you would think you have a budding superstar, right, in Elias Pettersson. Like, you have good players. You have Quinn Hughes is, one of the best young defensemen in the NHL. But like, what is this team right now?
They're a team with stars, as you mentioned, right? And I think that's where a lot of the hope is in this market. Patterson, Hughes, and Demko. If they all hit on their potential next season, the Canucks might not need to be a good team. Like, those three guys could almost do it for the Canucks. But it's at the end of the day, it's just that this team has failed to build around those guys, and still they have good players, but the mix is still a little weird. The defense is very much a work in progress. And I know we'll talk about some of the new additions that the Canucks made in the offseason. Addition by subtraction might have been the biggest thing, but yeah, it's an incomplete team. It's still an incomplete team. And until they prove otherwise, it's, they're kind of like looking in that creamy, mushy middle, unfortunately, right? They should be a playoff team. If they're not a playoff team, next season's a failure. But whether they're actually a playoff team or not is another question.
Do you think going back to that like playoff run in the bubble where they took the Vegas to what, game 6, game 7?
Game 7, yeah.
And do you think that was one of those where maybe I don't want to say they were a little too good too soon, and maybe they tried to kind of continue, instead of continuing to build slowly, they tried to kind of be like, hey, we might be better than we think? Or what do you think has happened since those past couple seasons?
Yeah, I think that bubble run was so interesting because if you look at what was going on when COVID hit, the Canucks were in the playoffs, but they were sliding out. So like, would that team have even made the playoffs in a regular year? I think that's very much a debate. So I mean, they caught lightning in a bottle a bit. Like they were rock solid against St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened at the end of that, the 2020 offseason is that the Canucks just decided not to spend money anymore. I don't know if it was like COVID restraints or what, but they let Markstrom walk, they let Tanev walk. They let Toffoli walk. They let Stetcher walk, and they bring in Holtby and they re-signed for Tannen, which was both were disasters. So I think it was they were acting like a playoff team up until 2020. They made the playoffs, and then all of a sudden they kind of started acting like a rebuilding team. Like we're just going to let these guys walk, and they just made some bad decisions, and it's just kind of right back to where we are now, I guess.
All right, what do you think has been the biggest storyline this offseason for the Canucks?
The biggest storyline for sure was buying out Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I think the fact that they actually bit the bullet and did it, most in this market, most pundits were saying it wasn't going to happen. Trevor Beggs, Locked on Canucks, was saying it was going to happen, and I think it needed to happen this offseason because the biggest cap win for the Canucks is this year, right? Oliver Ekman-Larsson was $7.26 million under the cap. 7.1 of that is off the books this season. So it's again moves like that signal the Canucks should be a playoff team. They've made moves like re-signing JT Miller that makes them a playoff team. But yeah, they actually have to get it done. I mean, again, but though the fact that they actually bought out Ekman-Larsson would be the biggest storyline for sure, because I don't think many expect that to actually happen.
All right, I think the other kind of big storyline that hasn't been resolved is the upcoming Patterson extension, right? That's I think all Canucks fans are just waiting for that tweet of like he's here, he's 8 more years of PD. Do you think it gets done before the season starts?
I don't. I'm hopeful. Obviously, it'd be nice if it got done, but I'd be very surprised. I think Patterson. I know Aho signed, but there's other shoes to drop as well. Patterson is more on a Matthews level than an Aho level. So I think there's other shoes to drop here, and I think this is going to go down like probably until sometime next season. I'd love to be wrong, but you could see maybe the Canucks want to sign him to just above Aho money in that 10-ish million range. I would say Patterson's probably worth Pasternak money, if not more, kind of accounting for cap inflation as well. We did an episode on that, and if the cap goes up by $4 million and he's getting Pasternak money, he'd be making $11.75 million. So I think there's a gap there, and I'd be surprised if it got solved this offseason.
Yeah, and especially a guy who's 24 and just entering his prime. And if you sign him now to 8 years, you're getting him through all of his prime years until he's 31, 32. That's the time to do it right here, is to try to get him locked up now, because he's probably just going to go out and put up another 100 points again this season and then just drive his price up again, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Benning should have signed him to a long-term extension when they signed Hughes to a long-term extension, but that's another story. Good old Benning.
Oh, believe me, kicking the can down the road, the Doug Wilson story for contracts right there. So, and then you wait too long and you resign him, and then you were paying Mark-Edward Vlasic $7 million until he's 30, till the sun explodes, actually, I think. So, whichever comes first. So, before we look at kind of what the Canucks did this offseason, look at their draft, some of their free agent signings, and then get into a nice preview of what you think the Canucks are going to do this year, do want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our good friends over at FanDuel. And if you want to take, football season's here, guys. So, yes, very excited. Football season's about to kick off. And even if you're one of those guys who you love betting on preseason because you're just a degenerate, they've got you covered for that as well. Right now, you can even bet on everything from Super Bowl winner, which is insane. I'm just going to put in some money on my Dolphins. Not the worst thing in the world. So anyway, right now you can bet on the Super Bowl winner. You can bet on anything. They've got divisions. You've got player props. They've got a bunch of bajillion things to check out. So go over to FanDuel.com. Check out all their amazing things. And right now, every bet gets you a bonus bet every time they win in the regular season. So if you pick your Super Bowl winner, maybe you pick the Chiefs. Every time they win during the regular season, you get a bonus bet during the regular season for that win. So you can use your bonus bets on the spreads, player props, overs, unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right. This offseason, let's start with the draft. The pick on number 11, they went Tom Willander, who I like Tom Willander. I think he was my third or fourth defenseman in the draft. I know you're very excited about Willander. So what do you think of the Canucks draft?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised in the slightest when they actually picked Willander. All the smoke around him, it's they took him out for dinner. I think they really liked him through the process. Certainly when Zach Benson was on the board, that was my first reaction, is that they probably shouldn't have passed on Zach Benson. Because I get it, positional need. It's hard to draft these right-hand defensemen.
Yes.
And if he projects and he hits and he is a solid top 4, top 2 defenseman, then the Canucks are going to look brilliant. But right now it's looking at the past couple of draft seasons with Labanc and Willander now. It's I think they probably passed on some better talent in both situations. I know Labanc got a bit unlucky, but I think in both drafts you're kind of walking away from Alvin and the staff, and you have some questions for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know, kind of look at the rest of their draft. They drafted Hunter Brovitsky, who was a potential kind of middle of the second round pick. And I think that's good value, at least in the third round. But they kept up their picking Swedish people because the Canucks love drafting Swedes. I mean, I like drafting Swedes too. The Swedes are great. But I think the Willander, it's going to be an interesting decision, especially. But if you found a long-term partner for Quinn Hughes, that's all that matters. That's awesome. Or at least somebody who can maybe alleviate some of the pressure on Hughes, so Hughes doesn't have to do everything in the future. And that you have two solid defensemen, at least two pairings where you have good offense. Quinn Hughes is otherworldly, but if Willander can be a souped up second pairing defenseman, that's not a bad start right there. So, and I think him going to playing in the NCAA this year, I think that's where he's projected to go. I think that's going to be good for his game too. I really like Willander. I still would have gone Axel Santin-Pellikka, but again, defenses for nerds, go score a bunch of points. So.
Hey, well, maybe that's why he likes Santin-Pellikka. He doesn't like defense either. He just likes to score a bunch of points. So it's all.
That's why I loved Erik Karlsson. Go score a bunch of points. And don't care about defense. Go score a bunch of points.
Geez.
All right. In free agency. So how would you sum up the Canucks free agency this year?
I mean, if it was on a bell curve, it'd be an A+, because I think that July 1st has historically been, the worst day for the Canucks, at least since Jim Benning joined the team. Every time July 1st rolls around, something really bad happens. And I think the Canucks avoided doing something really bad. I think that was the big win. I mean, with Soucy and Cole, I mean, I probably like the Cole bet a bit more. Just based on the tough competition he was facing last year. He was really good on the penalty kill. I really like the Cole on a 1 year, $3 million deal. I think that made a lot of sense. Soucy's a bit of a gamble, I think. I mean, I'm hopeful. I think maybe some pundits are maybe more hopeful than I am, but Soucy's really just been a third pairing defender. And I think the way I'm laying out is in my head is probably different to, most pundits in this market, but most people in Vancouver think Hughes and Cole are going to play together, and then Soucy and Herron are going to be together in the second pair. I would rather see Hughes and Soucy, because I just think Cole knows he's doing a bit more in that defensively reliable second pairing role. I don't really want Soucy to learn that beside Hronek, because Hronek has succeeded with steady partners, and with unsteady partners he hasn't looked so good. Whereas I think Hughes can support anybody. I think Soucy will look great beside Hughes, because I think most guys look good beside Hughes.
I mean, Erik Karlsson was playing with Derek Pouliot and Scott Harrington last year, and there's I get the when you have a defenseman like a Hughes or a Karlsson or whatever, just find them somebody who can just kind of cover for those guys. So
exactly.
So what do you think is? I mean, the Canucks I know are still very tight to the cap right now. They currently have 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, with kind of only one guy looks like who's slide eligible right now. So they are over the cap at $4.26 million as of right now, according to Cap Friendly. What do you think any moves that they do to help to kind of get themselves under the cap?
Yeah, so right now they can get under the cap with some maneuvering. We've done some digging about that on Locked On Canucks. Because right now Tucker Poolman, it sounds like he's going to go to LTIR unless something dramatic happens. Alvin actually said that he thinks Pearson's going to be ready for camp, which I'm skeptical of just based on everything Pearson's been through. I was in the end of season media availability. I saw his hand. His hand still looks really bad. Like it's all purple and casted up. And Tanner Pearson's been through the ringer. So I think whether Tanner Pearson and his $3.25 million salary cap hit end up on LTIR is kind of a big decision there. But aside from that, they can do some maneuvering to get below the cap. So they're right up against it, but they could be under right now. So I don't really expect any more moves to happen aside from kind of guys being shuffled in terms of with the team, without the team, or LTIR or not.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you think they have any other kind of, I know we're kind of in the dog days of summer right now, is any other potential signings or maybe guys that you hope that maybe they kind of look to try to at least kick some tires on here?
Yeah. Okay. I'll answer that. And then we got to talk about one thing quick because I said no player movement, but there's one between the Canucks and Sharks we got to talk about. In terms of guys they could sign, I mean, I'm a little surprised that Pius Suter hasn't signed yet, unless I'm missing something as I've been off over the summer.
I said the Sharks should sign Pius Suter as well too. So yeah.
Yeah. He makes sense for a lot of teams. I'm not sold on Teddy Bluger as a third line center, although I think he's an okay 1-year bet.
Yeah.
But Pius Suter still floating out there is interesting. I think Max Comtois has the potential to have a Sam Bennett-like effect if he hits on his potential.
Yeah.
But him floating out there is kind of interesting too. So those are guys I kind of look at. I mean, Tyler Mott, former Canuck. I don't know if fans want to see him back, but he was great when he was here. But aside from that, maybe the Tyler Myers stuff. Okay, now that's the talk in Vancouver. Yeah, he's tall. He's tall, big neck. Really big neck. Let me just say, San Jose Sharks. I think you guys could use a guy like Tyler Myers. Okay, steady veteran. But last season, he was the Canucks coaches, both Boudreau and Talker, were playing this guy like a bona fide top 4 defenseman, top penalty killing defenseman. He can do it all. He's got the big neck, the big reach. I think he'd be perfect for a rebuilding team like the San Jose Sharks. And so that's the rumor in Vancouver. It's been put out there.
The Myers
want Myers, or maybe Myers going to the Sharks after his signing bonus gets paid out in September. Because after that, it's only like $1 million you guys owe him. So
yeah,
anyways, I think it's a good fit.
The Myers for Kevin Labanc's 1-for-1 trade. Because Kevin Labanc, that guy is the most Eddie Sharks fan. He's because if you look at his analytics, and this guy's great. Why is he not? And then you watch him on the eye. He's like the guy where the eye test and the analytics just do not match. And it's like he's such a frustrating player because you can see the spurts of it, but then when David Quinn's just please sit down and don't play anymore right now, even though the team is just bad. There's something that disconnects there, and I don't want to take on any more cap. And
Kevin Labanc is an awkward fit for the Canucks. I mean, I get it. Theoretically, you'd free that $1.25 million in salary cap space, which means something. But with Labanc, it's you got Connor Garland, you got Anthony Beauvillier, you got Niels Höglander. Now you're gonna have Kevin Labanc. You're gonna have 4, 5, 10 wingers in your lineup. I even think Beauvillier, Garland, Höglander is probably too much for the Canucks right now. Never mind adding a guy like Labanc to that. So it's an awkward fit.
Yeah, Kevin Labanc's been an awkward fit for the Sharks since he signed that contract. So
never forget that discount though.
He took that discount. Good for him. Good for him trying to help the Sharks, and now he's I can't believe it's already been 4 years since that contract. 4
years, yeah.
Yeah, this is the 4th year of it. I can't believe it's already been 4 years. Time flies when you're having fun. So before we get into what you think the Canucks are going to do this year, do you want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Again, probably a part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you got to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can subscribe on YouTube. If you missed this week, of course, we had plenty of Erik Karlsson stuff. We recapped the trade, talked about his legacy, and then also Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff came on to discuss what he saw from all the Sharks prospects at the World Junior Summer Showcase. So make sure you guys, if you haven't checked those out, go check those out, and we'll be back next week to discuss more fun off-season stuff about Locked On Sharks. So, all right. Trevor, this off season, what is the best case scenario for the Canucks?
they go on a miracle run, man. Like, Pettersson, Hughes, and everyone's just amazing. Hronik's like one of the best defensemen in the NHL. JT Miller, Pettersson both put up 100 points. Besser bounces back. All kinds of things could go right. And then the Canucks, make it to the playoffs. And anything could happen. Like, even going to these playoffs, it's playoffs are unpredictable. So that's the best case scenario. It's like this team's got the talent to maybe surprise people and go on some Cinderella run. The worst case scenario, I think we've seen it every year for almost like the past 10 years, is that this team flames out. They're doing this like death march in March, ironically enough. And, they're going to be bottom 10 and maybe Pettersson leaves town because the team sucks. I mean, that's the worst case scenario. That's a dark spot to be, though.
I mean, Pettersson's still an RFA, so he still control his rights unless he decides he goes to management and says, like, I'm out. Then that's the really, really dark day, right? Is when he just says.
And players might be becoming more empowered too, right? Like you saw Matthew Tkachuk do it. I think it's not unrealistic that maybe some of these RFAs start kind of choosing their own destiny a bit more too.
I can't wait for Mike Greer to offer sheet him next season. It's gonna be great. The Sharks, they got the cap space. They're gonna have the picks. Let's.
Oh, that's a nightmare, man. That's a nightmare. That's like you're haunting me. Like, oh man, I was just thinking before, like when the Canucks started going downhill was before when the Sharks started going downhill. Like 2015-16 when Marleau and Thornton are just like thumping the Canucks every night, and we're playing like McCann and Virtanen on the first line as 19-year-olds, and you're just like, I hate the Sharks. That kind of hatred will come back up if you guys offer shit to Pettersson.
Mike Greer, I know you're listening.
Albion won't let it happen. He was interviewed about, or he was asked about signing Pettersson to a contract. He said, I'll even have Pettersson in my house. I'll make him Swedish meatballs. So Albion's on it, man. Can Mike Greer make Elias Pettersson Swedish meatballs? That's the question I want to know.
Don't worry. We have Phil said, William Eklund. We have Matthias Havlid. I think all those guys can make Swedish meatballs. So plenty of Swedes. You have Zetterlund. You have plenty of Swedes available in San Jose to go hang out with. And you already have Elias Pettersson replacement. He just plays defense. So, all right. I think we kind of know, because we were just talking about who's the most important player for the Canucks this season.
Yeah, maybe I'll give you a different one other than Pettersson, because Pettersson's pretty obvious. It's Thatcher Demko. I mean, I think he's probably more important than Pettersson, because I think we know Pettersson's going to be great as long as he's healthy.
Yep.
Demko was great until last season when he was terrible at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, Thatcher Demko, he can play at a Vezina level. He's been there before. I think he can do it again, but goaltending's unpredictable. And if Demko sucks, I don't think the team's going anywhere, because I don't think his defense is that good.
I mean, as Sharks fans, we've watched terrible defense and terrible goaltending for even longer. So, I kind of agree with you, and it feels like the Canucks will go as far as Demko can take them, right? Like you said, Hughes is going to be great. Pettersson, like the forward lines are pretty solid. At least you feel solid about the Canucks forwards, and the defense. You're hoping Demko can kind of return to form. I wonder if. That season before, right? That 21-22 season, where he played 64 games that year. And I wonder if that just kind of caught up to him and like just too much of a workload. So are you worried about the backup goalie position then?
Yeah, probably a little bit, to be honest. I mean, you have Spencer Martin, who looked great as a backup. And then as soon as he was thrust into the starter's role last season, he was one of the worst goalies in the NHL. And Archer Seelovs, he's looked fantastic in the AHL. He was, the Abbotsford Canucks MVP last season, was a Winter World Championship, but he's also like a 22-year-old goalie with 5 career NHL games. So backup goaltending is a question mark. With Demko, he has been injury prone. So, I mean, it's kind of wait and see, right? He's had hip surgery. Obviously was injured again last season for a few months, and you just never know, right? But I think the Canucks, they need Demko to be playing that 55, 60 games and be healthy and be a difference maker if they want to be a playoff team.
Could I interest you in one Capo Kakinen?
What's his cap hit right now?
It's like $2.5 million. He's on last year of his deal at $2.5 million. So.
Okay, how about Capo Kakinen for Tyler Myers?
The trade is 1-for-1.
Yeah.
Tyler Myers. No, get out of here, Tyler Myers.
Oh, come on. I thought I had you for a second.
Who do you think is the most going to be an impactful young player or rookie?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and I think it comes down to Höglander or Podkolzin. Oh, look, the sun is shining now, eh?
Yes.
The sun is shining on the Vancouver Canucks next season. That's what this is a
As
sign
you
of. That's why
talked
the
about,
sunshine is on me and not you.
yeah, Hoglander, the sun's coming down to talk about Hoglander. So yes.
Höglander. I think they're both interesting players. I, I see Höglander probably with making more of a difference than Podkolzin. I think Höglander has
Mhm.
the higher ceiling, and he proved it as a young guy in the NHL in his first season. He was
Yep.
a really good second liner. I think he just has to clean up the turnovers and mistakes in his game, but otherwise, he's an aggressive forechecker. He's really talented with the puck. And I think the Canucks could, make use of him. Again, he's making $1.1 million. He's a discount player. Podkolzin is easier to picture in the lineup because he's got the more physical stature, but I just don't like his scoring potential that much. Like, I think he could be a solid, bottom six player for this team, but I think Höglander is really the guy that could take a step forward.
Yeah, every time I saw Höglander in the AHL, it was just like, this guy's really good, and I think he's going to be really, really good. I also want to see Aatu Raty at some point. I'm loved Raty in the draft. Really upset the Sharks didn't draft him, and now, I could see him just kind of being one of those just really solid dudes for the Canucks for the next couple seasons, because he's really good. So I don't know if he makes the jump this year, but I think he's got a chance to next year or two to kind of start making an impact though.
Yeah. I think this season for him, it's about being like a point a game player in Abbotsford and just kind of playing big minutes. It's interesting. Like we kind of dove in this on Locked On Canucks, but he has a very similar arc to JT Miller. Like JT Miller was very similar at the same age. They both kind of had a high pedigree and then some problems after they got drafted. So seeing if his career arc is similar to JT Miller's is kind of a little tiny fascinating thing for you to watch.
All right. The last question. Where do the Canucks finish in the Pacific?
I'm saying fourth place. It's August. The sun is shining. And I think the Pacific Division really is in three tiers, right? You have Edmonton, Vegas, LA. I think those are your top three. And anything outside of that's pretty bold. I mean, you never know, but it's a bold take. And then I think in that 4, 5, 6, you have Vancouver, Seattle, and Calgary. I don't think Seattle's going to be as good as last season. I mean, prove me wrong, I guess. But I think they had a lot of things go their way last season. And I think there's probably some regression there. And Calgary, every time I think they're going to be bad, they're good. And
every time you think they're going to be good, they're bad.
Yeah, that's the problem with Calgary. So right now, it looks like they're probably not going to be very good next season. So they're probably going to figure out and be good. But I'm going to say the Canucks finish ahead of both those teams, both ahead of Calgary and Seattle. I'd probably go Calgary 5th, Seattle 6th right now if I'm ranking the division. And then San Jose and Anaheim at the bottom. That's a great question, man. That's a great question. I think you're hoping for 8th, so I'm going to say 7th.
Yeah, Anaheim's going to. I thought Anaheim was going to make the jump last year because I thought they have just so many young players that are really good. So I thought they were going to make the jump last year, but I think their coaching it was terrible. And I think they got to make the jump at some point, right? They just have too much talent to not just be to continue to be a bottom dweller. So, but yeah, the Sharks are one of the 3 worst teams in the NHL this year, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. So,
yeah, enjoy, man. You'll draft another Vancouver boy, Macklin Celebrini, and I'll be jealous. I'll be jealous.
San Jose Junior Shark. San Jose Junior Shark, Vancouver native, and he's playing college hockey in Boston. That is a Mike Greer just wet dream right there. So, Trevor, thank you so much. Where can the people find you?
Well, if you're on YouTube, you can see my Twitter down below, Trev Beggs. And if you're not on Twitter, well, go find Locked On Canucks wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Okay. So if the Sharks start bumming you out during the season, you can always tune in to Locked On Canucks. And when the Canucks piss you off and you need to calm down a bit, go head over to JD's page and he'll take care of you as well.
When you're a Canucks fan and you want to start to get into the draft, we've got you covered at Locked On Sharks. We're going to start draft coverage very early this year, I assume. So
draft coverage in October.
Oh boy, we already started just a little bit of draft coverage, looking ahead to the 2024 draft because it's going to be a long season in San Jose.
Well, and that'll be the biggest moment on the Sharks calendar too, right? So
that's what it was last year too. So. Of course, you can follow the Locked On Sharks wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter and Threads at MyFryHole. Until next week, bye, friends.